Hello, my name is Matt Carden. Here's where I will be showing my PowerPoint, and here is my audience. Say hello. Alright. How many of you went out this summer to see The Dark Knight Rises? I know I sure did, and I thought it was a fantastic movie, but when I think of it, I can't help but think back to the tragic shooting that occurred in Colorado with the opening of the movie. This event, although tragic, was one that could have been prevented by just one armed American citizen that was carrying a firearm. I believe that the general public should be encouraged to carry firearms as well as become proficient in their use. This is because it deters crime and robbery, and without armed citizens, there is no one to defend us from criminals, other than policemen who are not always there, obviously, when needed. When people hear gun control, they often jump to the conclusion that, oh, taking away guns will deter crime and take away crime because criminals won't have guns. This is actually the furthest thing from the truth. Um, the more armed citizens that there are in an area, the lower the crime rate. And here I have a perfect example on my PowerPoint. Here on this first slide, there is a crime index for the crime rates in Chicago from January to June in 2010, and then again in 2011. This is the reason for these dates is in 2010, concealed carry, which is the carrying of a pistol concealed by an American citizen legally through taking courses, was not allowed, and in 2011 this was allowed. And as you can see, obviously, murder, criminal sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, theft, and arson, all those rates went down in a time period where citizens could legally arm themselves. Interesting. As we move on, another interesting fact is once Obama was elected, Obama is anti-gun, for those of you who don't know. Gun sales increased 40% because many people were afraid of losing their privilege to bear arms and purchase new firearms. What also is interesting is while this percentage of gun sales went up, crime also decreased by about 8%, which to me, over hundreds of thousands of crimes in a country, is a pretty large number. Next, on my PowerPoint, I have a graph of the murder rates in Washington, D.C. compared to the rest of the United States. Now, the first line that is very sporadic and goes up and down is the crime rates in Washington, or murder rate in Washington, D.C. by 100,000 people compared to the rate in the normal U.S., which is the dotted line at the bottom. That's the average rate. Now, as you can see at the beginning, rates are much higher than the normal U.S. to begin with, and there's a dot, and that gives a point where before that dot, concealed carry, which once again is a U.S. citizen being able to carry a firearm legally while it's hidden, was allowed. After that point, gun locks and stricter gun laws, more gun control, was implemented, and crime rates stay about the same, drop a little bit, and they skyrocket. Now, once you see these rates skyrocket, they also decrease again and level off, and then there's another dot, and that's when concealed carry was once again encouraged, and gun laws were relaxed, and then crime rates obviously fell. Now, this is just another example of an instance where the more gun control there was, the more crime there was, and when there was less gun control, there wasn't as much crime. Once again, interesting. Looking back at historical crime rates with and without concealed carry, crime is much greater when there is no concealed carry allowed. And if you would, let me show you. Here's an illustration of the crime rate change since 1994, which is when a major push for the allowing of concealed carry was implemented. And the red line is the rate of crime per 100,000 people, and the blue is just the number of crimes on average. And you can see that as there's been less gun control and less gun control laws, crime rate per 100,000, and the general number overall have both decreased. To me, that's a staggering fact that shows that the more guns that are legally in the hands of U.S. citizens, the better. I also have a study by the FBI. Their Unified Crime Report of 2007 shows that areas with the right to carry have a 30% lower homicide rate, 46% lower robbery, and 12% lower aggravated assault, as well as 22% less overall crime compared to those who do not encourage and allow concealed carry. Due to these statistics, what began as just a handful of states originally with the right to concealed carry have evolved into almost the entire country. Now, while most of the country allows concealed carry, most don't really encourage it, which is a problem because if I, being a Michigan gun owner, have a concealed carry permit, I want to travel to another state with my handgun to protect myself. It's not always encouraged, and although it's technically legal, police can give you trouble for it. So that's just a fact to throw out there. And I also have another study by the U.S. Department of Justice, and they took a survey of 2,000 felons, 2,000 convicted felons, and 34% of them admit to being scared off, shot at, wounded, or captured by an armed victim. That's a staggering number, because that shows that people who carried weapons obviously could defend themselves, or even if they didn't have to garnish their weapon or use it, still just gave the threat off of potentially stopping a crime, and criminals were deterred. 40% admit that they had been deterred from committing a crime due to fear that their potential victim may have been armed. So people don't even have to be carrying a firearm. So by relaxing gun laws and making it easier or more common for someone to carry a gun, we can just deter crime, even though more people may not necessarily be armed. Arguments against firearms often claim that by taking away firearms and our right to bear arms, crime would be reduced. Making gun control stricter only hurts people from protecting themselves. If you look at European countries who have banned weapons or firearms, you can look at their crime rates, and the number of knife violence and stabbings just goes up exponentially. Their numbers grow very great, and aggravated crimes increase because more beatings by groups of people and stabbings are occurring. And another perfect example of this is the Norway shootings that occurred, I believe, about a year ago now, 2011. Gunmen, for those of you who don't know, set off a bomb in Norway and then continued to a separate part of the country. And while all the SWAT team and police were responding to the first threat or bomb explosion, he went to this island of camp children, and over 91 people were confirmed dead, and many more were wounded because the gunmen simply went to this island, started shooting people, and there's no way you can protect yourself against an armed gunman without having a gun in an open area. And like I said, he ended up killing 91 people, wounding many others. And this was a tragic event where if just one person or many would have been carrying firearms, the entire thing may not have been able to be prevented, but it would have been able to been held to a much smaller scale, such as the shooting in Colorado, where one person could have prevented this man, or at least prevented him from committing all the shootings, or at least deterred him while others in the mob could have forced and rushed him. Moving on here. Some say that making it harder to obtain firearms would mean less guns in the hands of bad guys. Well, this is a good point to make until you think about drugs. How does that work with drugs? I know, being a high school student, I could go up and I knew people that I could find any drug I wanted to from. And that's just a teenage kid. So that argument doesn't really hold water with me. If just kids can get a hold of drugs that are technically or are supposed to be illegal and not allowed in our country, what'll happen if guns are outlawed? You think the bad guys will just stop carrying guns because they're not legal? They already are breaking the law, and they don't care. Something to think about. Just by taking citizens' right to bear arms away or constricting them and making it harder to do so, we'd simply make it easier for those criminals to just go about their business and would actually help increase crime rather than deter it. I actually have a very personal story for this. My father, I believe it was my sophomore year in college, was going to get gas on a Saturday morning for me. I was filling up my tank because I was home. Really nice of him. And in order to do so, he wanted to get cash, and he stopped at a walk-up ATM. My father has been carrying a concealed pistol for many years, and my family and I are avid gun owners, and luckily he had his firearm with him that morning. As we went to a walk-up ATM, the van pulled in, blocked in his car early in the morning on a Saturday, and 5 men jumped out of the van and started to walk at him at the ATM. My father, being a 55-year-old man, is an ex-Marine. It's pretty tough, but 5 men, his chances probably weren't pretty good, and he may have even been killed. Luckily, he had his firearm on him and just pulled it out and said, "Hey, fellas, this ATM, I don't think it's working. You should go somewhere else." And immediately upon seeing the weapon, they jumped in their van, peeled out, and tore off, never to be seen again. Now, this is just one instance of my father carrying a concealed firearm with a relaxed gun law here in Michigan, thankfully. And because he was doing so, he was able to prevent himself from being robbed, beaten, maybe even killed. Who knows? I don't want to know what would have happened, and I am really grateful that he was able to carry his firearm that morning. Now, like I said, I obviously am a gun owner, and I'm very avid on this subject. And I'm not saying that every grandma or mother or young person out there needs to be carrying a gun, because we all know that there are people who wouldn't be responsible with it. And that's why there are certain things in place right now where are laws where you can't just get a gun. What I'm saying is that by relaxing these laws and making more armed citizens in our country, we can help lower crime rates. And I know for one, I am 21, I'm getting my concealed weapon permit because if my daughter, anything ever happened to my wife or daughter or my son even or my family members while I was with them and I didn't protect them and I could have been carrying a firearm, I would never forgive myself. So I just hope that by listening to this speech, you maybe will think about helping support relaxing gun laws and encouraging the carrying of firearms so that we can reduce crime in our great country. Thank you.